Okay, go ahead.
They were living near the Westerners in a small cottage. Baba had told Franny that her children should no longer attend boarding school. So Franny drove them back and forth to school each day and cooked for the family and for Baba when he was in Nasik. Though Franny sometimes became emotionally upset, she was also well read and erudite. Jal R. Irani, Goher's younger brother, greatly admired her. Franny spoke such beautiful English and played the piano so well, he remembered. She had real class. Franny was also a great help to the Westerners. Baba had told her to mix with the Westerners, Mehera recalled. The Westerners asked all sorts of questions and wanted to know about Baba, his work and earlier life. Norina, who was especially interested in metaphysics and theosophy, had long conversations with my mother. The Rahuri ashram was dismantled at this time and the materials transported to Lower Mehrabad, where the Mad ashram was reestablished. Baba had also been considering disbanding the Nasik ashram with the Westerners. Since the monsoon season was approaching and travel between Mehrabad and Nasik would soon become difficult. The climate in Mehrabad was not suitable for most Westerners, so the idea originated of returning to Italy, where the weather would be more congenial. From this came the decision to proceed to Cannes, France, with both the Westerners and the Eastern women, Mondeley. Previously, whenever Baba had journeyed to the West, he told the women Mondeley about his plans ahead of time and, and let them know when he would be returning. We never thought of going with them, Mara said. We didn't have that wish or desire. We knew Baba had to go alone for his work. We had the idea to go with him, even in 1937. But in that year, much to their surprise, Baba announced in April that he would be taking them with him to France. Not everyone was happy about it. We were afraid, said Khorshid. We were so strict at Mehrabad. Now we had to go into the world to meet new people, to eat with a fork and spoon. And most of us spoke um, and most of us spoke little, if any, English. We all said, Baba, we are happy here. You go and do your work. We will stay here. Baba said, No, I have to take you for my work. Don't you want to help me? Baba instructed the women to begin preparations for the journey. We were glad and happy about the trip with Baba, but we were not that eager or excited to go. One of the things that dampened their enthusiasm that it was so much extra work to get ready. They had to have proper clothes, for instance. For years they had made do with old patched dresses, no more. And they had to sew everything themselves, nicer clothing, unlike the everyday outfits they wore in the ashram. Some of the new clothes were made from the same cloth that had been distributed in bundles to the poor at Baba's birthday celebration in Nasik. Baba asked the women if they needed some material, which of course they did, and afterwards sent the crepe material that had been left over. When it arrived, they were pleased to find that it was attractive and brightly colored, violet, pink, and yellow. But the women did not have much time or to devote to this new project, since they also had to do their regular chores, be with Baba, and entertain the Westerners. They did, however, still have the sewing machine that they had used in Nasik. Although it was old and broken, at night, Khorshad, an adept seamstress, lit hurricane lanterns and used it to stitch skirts and other items from the birthday crepe. For days, she made things for Mehera herself and her mother. Baba found out about it, however, and told her not to do it anymore at night. It was like tying our hands and feet, Mehera reflected. Without the freedom of doing things, you must still do everything. We were glad that by that time, Khorshid had already stitched many things. As Europe would be chilly, Baba did allow Nerina and Elizabeth to take the women's measurements for some warm jackets and coats that would be made by a tailor. The two came to Mehrabad for this purpose, and before beginning, ate lunch with Baba and the Easterners in the East Room, where Baba was seated on his gadi and the women on stools. That night they were having roasted corn on the cobs. The Easterners did not know that this was a common dish in the West. So they told Narina, "Today you'll have something new for lunch." The food was brought, and Narina was surprised that it was something so familiar, but she asked what they called it. Makai Buto, the women said in Gujarat. Narina burst out laughing, and they could not understand why until Baba too asked the reason. Whatever they just said is a swear word in Italian, Narina. Makai Buto. Sounds Hawaiian. Narina began taking measurements. Each one stood in turn, saying something like, "Let me see how much it is." No.
Beginning with Mehera.
In turn, beginning with Mehera, while Elizabeth silently jotted down the figures. When Naja's turn came, she stepped forward, feeling self important. Narina put the tape to Naja's shoulder and began speaking to herself, saying something like, "Let's see how much it is." Naja, whose English was rudimentary, thought Narina was addressing her and replied proudly, "5:30." All laughed. Baba asked her to repeat it. "How much?" "Say it loudly." What Naja meant was that her shoulder measured 5.5 inches, as she could see on the tape. Baba had her repeat it again while everyone else continued laughing. "Naja, you are a wonder," Narina remarked. Narina decided to have capes made instead of jackets so that the women could wear them over their saris. For the trip, not only must they make new clothes. Oh, well, let me just read that sidebar.
Yeah, you missed a couple sidebars.
Oh, okay. But Yulu is a crude way of saying stupid idiot in Italian. So perhaps it reminded Marina of this. And also, the capes were made with hoods, not only for warmth, but also to shield the women's faces from passers-by. So not only must they make new clothes, they also had to attend to details of personal grooming that they had not bothered with in the ashram. 5 years earlier, Baba had noticed a gray hair on Mira's head, and he had told her sister Franny to pull it out. Now Mira had a streak of gray above her forehead. Baba did not like it. What can be done about it? He asked. Now that we're going to the West, it doesn't look nice. The only answer was to color it. Go ahead, Baba instructed. He told Franny to buy something. It was a horrible Indian preparation. Mira had to wash her hair, mix the powder, wash it in, and leave it for a certain time. It was probably that kind of brownish red stuff, right?
I
What's it
don't
called?
know.
Uh,
I've never colored my hair.
uh, yeah, the name of it is
Miss
escaping me.
Clairol or something.
No, henna.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's an Indian prep. So Mara had to wash her hair, mix the powder, wash it in, and leave it for a certain time. It was a mess. But Baba had said to dye it, so she did, whether she liked to or not. Over the years, the streak grew in size, and Mara continued to dye it as Baba never lifted the order. At a meeting, on to July, a few of the men Mandali were told about the women accompanying Baba to France. Chanji noted the news of taking the ladies to the West was disclosed with strict instructions of not revealing it to anybody outside. The primary reason for all the secrecy was that Baba did not want Shireen Mai, Gul Mai, Franny Masi, Dalit Mai, and Franny to insist on being taken also. Rustam was only informed the day after Baba sailed, and he informed Franny, who became highly agitated. When Gulmai was told at Sangamner, where she was being treated by an Ayurvedic doctor, she was shocked and terribly shaken and disappointed. She was especially hurt not to have been included, as Baba had once promised to take her to the West.
Where were you?
So, near the top, at a meeting on to July, okay, we did that one. Strict instructions of not revealing it to anybody outside. But vaccinations were required then for such a journey, and a woman doctor came to the hill to give them. There was also the matter of getting the women passports. Chanji was sent to the passport office in Bombay to inquire whether the women could have their passport photos taken with them in purdah, in parentheses, wearing a veil or scarf across the lower portion of their face. He was told that the photos would have to be without their faces covered. The solution in Mara's case was that her picture was taken with her wearing a pair of glasses. This not only extended to Mara's seclusion, by keeping her face hidden to some degree from male immigration authorities, it also prevented Mara from seeing any man, as the glasses had prescription lenses, which blurred her vision when she went through customs and immigration. The author asked Mara, after all the years in Nasic and Meherabad, were you glad to be going to France? Yes, it was a change from all the years of confinement, Mara admitted. But even though we didn't walk about, even in the compound, and just waited for Baba to return from the Mandali, still we were so happy and content to be in Meherabad. Mara loved Baba so much, Goher commented years later, that the thought never entered her mind that Baba was too strict. At that time, it didn't matter to her that her life was so restricted. She was obeying Baba and happy to do so. Mara's nature was to be out of doors. It was a great sacrifice for her to be in such strict seclusion. Always, wherever she was, two girls must be with her, waiting outside, even when she went to the toilet. Not to read or write. It was very difficult. But she did it. That too, without thinking that it is hard on her. She didn't mind because it was pleasing Baba. Mara observed, only the early ones know the tests and trials. They all, especially Mara, so that's Meru observed. Only the early ones know the tests and trials they all, especially Mara, had to go through when Baba's orders were so many and had to be strictly obeyed if they wished to stay with him. Whoops.
Do you want to continue?
I'm wondering if there was a sidebar just at the bottom of the previous page. Yeah. Okay. That sidebar says on the description page of Mara's British passport is written profession, religious.
Yeah, that's good.
I think they use the word religious. In the past, they used to use it as a noun, like
Really,
he a religious or she is a religious.
really.
Uh, uh, would you mind continuing until you're tired and then pass it back to me? Thank you, Tina.
I think Rosalie is here.
Oh, awesome.
Rosalie, would you like to read some?
Yes. Mehera herself commented, in Baba's ashram, there has to be someone who undergoes some kind of strict order. Mehera had to do very difficult things in her life for Baba. Mani added, we already read that, right?
No.
No. She went through very strict times of great self-denial, through a period of strict inner discipline. With Baba, it is not always outer discipline, but inner. Yet, even through that, we knew that Mehera was special. that her role was special. Mani concluded, Mehera's role as the queen, as it were, has not been an easy one. Baba has tested the mettle of each one by what each has had to go through. It is a role from the past. It isn't forged from this life. It is formed and forged from past lives. The grace is not a thing that you earn. It is when you please the beloved. It's a role for each and every time the avatar comes. The stage is set. The play is done. It's only the players who are left to be put in. And who gets the role is according to Baba's work. The role doesn't change. Sometimes it's been easy. Sometimes it I lost my place. Okay.
Sometimes it's been easy, sometimes it's not been easy.
Yeah. Baba made it very clear. Through Mehera, Baba has been able to do his work, which is the main thing. Baba always said his work comes first. To make his work easier, instead of asking questions, we should have just gone along. It was the walking a tightrope in those days. One of the Urdu ghazals that Baba enjoyed hearing had a line which said, to get color from henna, the henna has to be ground. So too, to get dyed in the spiritual path, one must be ground also. Yet there was that joy, even in the new life. There was that freedom of being with Baba. You wouldn't want anything else. Our only fear was that Baba might send us away.
There they all are.
Yeah. Upper Maraba water tank, where Tin Shed is now. January 1937. Margaret, Kitty, Khorshid, Nani, Jean, Narina, Baba, Mehera, Nadine, Mani, Bagu, Delia, Naja, Rano, Elizabeth. Where's Elizabeth? She's at the end, but I don't.
Is she this lady?
No. It lists her at the very end.
I know that, and that maybe it's gotten cut off.
Maybe.
It is italicized. I wonder what that means. Hmm. There's Baba as Krishna and his gopis. It's Khorshid, Margaret, Narina, Mehera,
Baba.
Baba, Mani, Delia,
Yeah.
Kitty.
Kitty.
Mhm. There's Baba and Mehera. That I've seen before.
The family tree. Wow, there is his mother. She's finally saying that he is who he is.
Mhm. There are a lot of pictures in here.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is with the glasses. Okay, you want to continue?
Yeah, for a while. In June 1937, Meher Baba started sending back some of the Westerners, such as Margaret, Kitty, Delia, and Ruano. By the time he and the women Mandali departed for France, only 7 out of the original group of 16 Westerners remained to accompany them. Norina, Elizabeth, Nani, Rano, Jean, Malcolm, and Tom. Also going to France were Kippy and Canute, the 2 dogs, and Rustam and Franny's second son, Falu, who was being sent to England for his education. Norina, Elizabeth, Nani, and Rano drove to Bombay on 29 July to make preparations for Baba and the Eastern women and booked rooms at the Regent Hotel at Ballard Pier. Baba and the 6 from the hill, Mera, Mani, Khorshid, Naja, Sunamasi, and Walu, left by train the same day at 2:50 p.m. All were unwell. Khorshid and Naja had a fever and left without washing their hair. The sidebar said the Regent Hotel is no longer in existence. Ronald had been instructed to meet them early on the morning of 30 July in front of the hotel and to make sure that no men were nearby. Rano rose at dawn, but outside the hotel, she was dumbstruck by the sight that met her eyes. Bodies of sleeping Indians covered the veranda, the landing, and the steps. She could not wake them, for where would she tell them to go? Instead, she prayed silently that no one would wake up. When Baba arrived, before he and the women stepped out of the car, Rano told him that there were corpses on the veranda. Baba told her not to worry and instructed the women to just be careful and step between them, which they did. They stayed in the hotel that day and night. Kitty had been sent ahead to France in the first week of June to make arrangements, not only for the 3 houses required in Cannes, but also to safeguard the women's privacy on board ship. Before leaving India, she contacted the SS Strafnaver's agent in Bombay and explained the situation. At her request, the manager of the P&O lines sent this letter to the ship's purser. 23rd June 1937 to purser SS Strafnaver in care of messengers, McKinnon, Mackenzie and Company, agents P&O SN Company. I need more words. York Street, Colombo. Dear Sir, regarding Sri Meher Baba and party, I have received the following advice in regard to the above party, which includes Americans and Britishers and British Indians. The chief points with regard to this party are vegetarian food for all, food to be served in the cabins for a party of 8 ladies who will not mix with any other passengers. Sri Meher Baba and Secretary Chanji also eat in their cabins. I understand that the party are all booked on, quotes, G deck, and have also been given the assurance by our agents that only stewardesses will wait and attend on these 8 ladies. The sidebar says, Narina and Rano were to remain secluded with the 6 Eastern women. Elizabeth and Nani could have their meals in the dining room with the other passengers. Baba and the group left the hotel at 7:30 a.m. on 31st July, boarded the Mehera-Meher an hour later, and sailed for Marseille at 1:20 p.m. The Eastern and Western women were given cabins 563, 565, and 567. Mera, Mani, and Khorshid shared one cabin. Naja, Sunamasi, and Walu were in a second, and the 4 Western women in a third. Baba and Kaka were in cabin 574, and Tom, Chanchi, and Nilu were in 572, all on the same deck. Jean and Malcolm had a cabin elsewhere, near Falu's, who most likely stayed with Adi Jr. Once they were safely on board, Mera recalled, "We were all happy that we were going to France. While the boat was still at the dock, a stewardess brought a meal of Indian-style food." Mera said in Gujarati, "We must say thank you and show her that we are also educated people." Mera said. In Gujarati, she instructed Mani to smile and say thank you after each dish was served on their plate. Mani, who was also convent educated, felt slightly affronted that Mera thought she had to point this out to her, and replied, "Well, of course, I'll say thank you." After they ate and began to unpack, the boat started. When they were out to sea, Baba came to their cabin and gestured. "This boat is rolling a bit. Does anyone feel giddy?" Mani said, "No, Baba, not at all." But Baba's power of suggestion made Mera begin to feel seasick. I need more words. I can't see anything now. The script's totally gone.
It's gone?
Oh, here, it's back. It's back. It was totally gone. Oh, and then Mara said she was feeling a little funny. But Baba's power of suggestion made Mara begin to feel seasick. "I'm feeling a little funny, Baba." She climbed into her berth. "Once I put my head there, I didn't get up. I couldn't keep anything down. There was no basin in our cabin, but there was a chamber pot. which Monty quickly brought over. At that moment, the stewardess came in. All the style and grace and thank yous we had said to show how mannerly we were went out the window. I forgot everything and vomited. Monty had said, wait until the stewardess left, but I didn't care. I couldn't hold it down. I was too miserable to care what the stewardess would think. Although they were traveling third class, their cabin was comfortable. The only drawback was its location, directly over the engine room in the bowels of the ship. The loud grinding sound of the powerful engines and its steady vibration were unceasing. They could not change rooms and had no choice but to put up with it. Baba had ordered Chanji to book cabins in a secluded area of the ship where they would be less likely to encounter other passengers. Chanji booked us cabins with no air right over the propeller, Rano noted, which made a constant gurring noise every time it rose out of the water. I and others were very ticked off at him about this. Mani said our cabin was over the engine, very secluded. Though we were going abroad, we were still leading a very cloistered life. Ranu and Irina keeping watch, so we didn't touch or see men. For some weeks, Mani kept a diary, briefly noting their daily activities. August 1st, on deck for an hour from 5:30 a.m., Mehera seasick and miserable. August 2nd, rougher weather, all seasick. Over the next few days, Baba came often to their cabin to ask about Mehera. Bending over her berth, he would inquire sweetly, did you eat? Norina informed him, Baba, she still can't keep anything down. Baba told her to bring orange juice, and he gently administered it, teaspoon by teaspoon, into Mehera's mouth. Keep it down, he urged. Don't bring it up. Said Mehera, it was such an ordeal for 8 days. A night light was kept burning, and Baba peeped in during the night also. Since Mehera was not well, where are we? Oh,
She
okay.
switched
She
to,
switched from an upper to a lower berth. She was not permitted to go out of her room or to the bathroom, which was down the corridor. The noise and the vibrations from the engine contributed greatly to Mehera's seasickness, and the chamber pot in their room was often full. Mani volunteered to clean it, and each day Narina escorted her to the toilet with the heavy porcelain pot, which had a lid. This led to an amusing anecdote. Mani explained, because of our restrictions, whenever we left the room to go to the toilet, I had to have a towel or something covering my face. I couldn't just see my hand and I could just see my hand and Narina's elegant shoes, but I had to follow her. Here is this princess, Narina, whom everybody knows, such friends with the captain, being followed by this strange woman with a towel on her head and a full chamber pot held with both hands at arm's length. Narina must have felt so embarrassed with me under the towel. She tried to walk so quickly to keep away from me as much as possible so that people wouldn't associate her with me. I had to keep up. The faster Narina went, the faster I went. Because if I lost sight of those shoes, I wouldn't know where I was going. Narina would say, child or darling, when she was exasperated or wanted something. And on the third day of this, she whispered to Mani, child, you must carry that chamber pot like a bouquet. Mani recalled, I felt like saying, well, you try it. This chamber pot is so heavy, but I was too timid. Mani and Khorshid had to be escorted to the bathroom to wash their clothes also, either by Narina or Rano. They washed their underwear and socks in the basin, and even a few of their smaller garments. One day, Narina accompanied Khorshid to the bathroom and told her that Rano would come to take her back. Khorshid was in the toilet. When Rano, who was wearing slacks, came inside, after Khorshid finished, she opened the door. But when she saw a pair of trousers, she jumped back into the stall, thinking that a man had come. 2 or 3 times Khorshid peeked under the stall door, but each time she saw the pants, stayed where she was, and prayed that the gentleman would go away. Rano left and came back to the toilet several times, wondering what in the world had happened to Khorshid. Has she fallen down the hole? How much time is she going to take? In the meantime, Khorshid was wondering when Rano would come for her. Finally, Rano knocked on the door and asked what she was doing. I'm so glad you've come, Khorshid said, visibly relieved. There was a man in here. Rano had been ordered to stand guard outside Mehera's cabin also, in case a drunken passenger stumbled by. When she took up her post, she asked the stewardess what she did for seasickness. The stewardess said that she swallowed a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Rano asked her to bring a tablespoon and a bottle of it. There were no stools or chairs in the corridor, so Rano sat on the floor with a bottle of Worcestershire between her legs. She had decided that even before she felt sick, as a prophylactic measure, she would take a spoonful of it. Just as she poured it out, she felt someone peering over her shoulder. She turned to find Baba. What are you doing? He asked. She explained, and Baba said, all right, drink up. She did and felt fine for the rest of the voyage. Sidebar. One night, Narina was told by Baba to sleep on the floor outside Nara's room. A tipsy male passenger tripped over her in the middle of the night, having gone down the wrong passageway. The door of Mara's cabin had been left open for ventilation, and Narina hurriedly steered him away. Once without permission, Rano went up on deck for some fresh air. Baba and the Mandali appeared. Baba looked at her in surprise and asked, what are you doing here? Down you go, back to your cabin. I'm just getting some fresh air, Rano said beseechingly. There are so many in the cabin. Nothing doing, down you go. Later, Baba did allow her and Narina to come up on deck for a few hours each day. In those days, I was still green, Rano admitted, and did things like that without his prior permission. Baba often said, "All I want from the West is love." But later he became stricter and demanded our obedience also. Baba himself went on deck occasionally, looking dapper and debonair in a Western suit, a scarf around his neck, and his braid tucked inside a beret. He played table tennis with Audrey Williams, who already knew of Baba and happened to be on the ship. "While you're sick, I'm playing ping pong," he told Mehera. "And when the ship rolls," he joked, "I play even better."
Hmm. Hold on.
Okay. Someone else want to read?
Yeah, I will. Audrey was a young Australian ballet dancer who had met Baba on one of his previous trips to the West and had come to India in 1933 with the other Westerners. But during this trip, as Mehera and the Eastern women were in seclusion and not well, Audrey was never taken to see them. They saw her on deck when they disembarked, but did not speak to her. After this voyage, Audrey never saw Baba again.
Wow.
As the days went by, Mehera continued to be seasick, the main reason being the rocking of the boat. The voyage so far had been particularly turbulent. It was monsoon season, and the Arabian Sea was rough and stormy. From their porthole, the women could see the waves crashing against the boat. One day, when the weather was calmer, Baba asked Mehera if she was feeling better, and she responded, "A little better." He wanted to show her and the others the ship. Because of Mehera's strict seclusion, they were awakened in the early morning at 2 a.m. and when they were not likely to encounter other passengers. Nevertheless, not only did they have to get up out of their sleep, they had to put on makeup also. "Who would like to do this at 2 a.m.?" Mehera commented. From way below in the third class, they came up to the deck. Chanji and Kaka formed an advance party, walking far ahead down the corridor to make sure no one was coming. Rano went next. She could barely see Chanji. Behind Ranu were Baba and the women, who could see Ranu but not Chanji and Kaka. The women were taken everywhere, but it was so dark that Mani almost missed some steps on the staircase. At one point, she was crawling up the stairs on all fours. As expected, very few people were about, but they did notice one person lying on the deck, which a few sailors were swabbing before putting out the deck chairs for the day. Baba led them to the lounge and the dining rooms, and then to the top of the deck where there was a small tennis court. It wasn't cold. We all sat on the deck for a while, Mehera said, and had their first unimpeded panoramic view of the ocean. Mani added, "Baba had a nice walk up and down the deck, no matter where we went, on the veranda or an open area. Baba liked to stride up and down." They stood along the rails, and the sea air was refreshing. But when a storm began approaching, Mehera saw the clashing waves. She said, to Baba. I can't look at the sea. I'm feeling very giddy. Do you feel sick? Baba asked. Yes, I feel nauseous. They were rushed back to they were rushed back to their rooms. To add to Mara's discomfort while she was ill in bed, the stewardess locked the portal so there was no breeze and it was always dark. Mara had to ask one of the other women what time it was. I didn't know if it was day or night. It was terrible. I nearly died. I wanted fresh air, and when I opened my eyes, all I saw was a darkened room with 4 little berths. I would roll over and see a closed porthole and feel worse. When Mara complained that the darkness and lack of air were making her worse, Rano and sometimes Narina, looking lovely in pearls and a gorgeous gown, was sent to the captain to get an extra key to open the porthole, unbeknownst to the stewardess. When the stewardess brought their meals, she was not pleased that the porthole was open. Who has opened the porthole? The girls explained that they enjoyed fresh air and they had requested the captain himself to let them open it. But the stewardess said, no, you must not open it. It's quite stormy today and your berths will be sprayed with salt water. After she left, they opened it anyway. And when she came back, she shut it again. It was like this throughout the whole voyage. Khorshid had begun to feel queasy. As arranged by Kitty, at every meal she was brought to their cabin. But Khorshid found it difficult to even look at the food. She tried to eat, but she felt nauseated. For several days, just as they started to eat, Khorshid started to throw up, and Norina had to help her as she vomited into the chamber pot. Norina had to leave her meal to the empty chamber pot. Khorshid related, feeling guilty still. She never grumbled, but did it with all her heart as a duty for Baba. Khorshid, however, was feeling seasick for only part of the journey. She would eat, feel a little sick, and then be all right again. Mani and Nadia, on the other hand, were never ill during the voyage and they enjoyed every meal. Sunamasi and Walu were also unwell in their cabin with nausea and vomiting. When Mara was feeling better, Baba said, "Come, see Masi and Walu." He helped her stand and led her across the hall to the opposite cabin. They opened the door and Walu folded her hands in a namaskar greeting to Baba, but she did not say a word. She was sitting up in bed looking quite ill. Masi looked even worse. Mara said, "Baba, seeing them, I am feeling more sick. Let me go lie down." She was taken back to her room. Mara was not the type of person who could easily tolerate sickness, however, or any affliction, however minor. She was rarely ill, even with a cold. For years, she had been living in an austere but rarefied atmosphere in Mehrabad Hill, and now felt miserable before setting foot in the comparatively luxurious West. To be subjected to violent nausea for days was a horrendous experience. But undoubtedly, Baba made her and the others go through this suffering on her first visit outside of India for some important work. I think we could stop there. What do you think?
Yeah, getting seasick.
I know.
I mean, really, what they had. Can you imagine all those days? Miserable. I've
Must
never
have
been
been awful.
seasick.
I have to turn off the recording. Yes.